Welcome to the Inferno Cast. Today's guest is truly a lifelong martial artist, and he has changed martial arts as we know it in the entire world. Please welcome Master Rickson Gracie. How are you doing today, sir?
Great, my friend. Great to be here with you and talk a little bit about what we love to do.
Excellent. Well, obviously you're an inspiration to so many martial artists and me as well. I mean, the documentary Choke, which has turned so many kids into martial arts and jiu-jitsu bums, definitely inspired me whenever I was younger. You know, the obvious influence is there, but I wanted to kind of go back to your influences of when you were a small kid starting martial arts. I'm kind of curious what your perspective of the training was and how that started to change as you got older.
So I'm coming from a family which traditionally is involved in martial arts. So I'm born and raised with, I'm born instead of getting diapers, I get a gi. So it's all my family involved, and I start to create this kind of very comfortable relationship with entanglement and wrestle and play and get base and being thrown on the ground, stand up, be throwing around and play. So it was always ludic, it's always fun, it's always very recreational. And you start to getting comfortable with the ability to engage. And that's pretty much something every kid's supposed to develop, because it's just a development of your senses. You know, you developing the sensorial mode to develop better base or better space or better deflection or better connection. So I believe this is a part with every kid supposed to be involved with, but they don't. Anyway, soon I start to getting a little older, like 6, 7 years old. My father put me in the first competition. And then he said to me, if you win the fight, I give you a gift. If you lose the fight, I give you 2 gifts. This is hard to understand because in the end, I don't want to lose to get 2 gifts. But he showed me he's supporting me no matter what, and he's on my side, and he's not expecting me to win, or it's not my fault if I lose. So subconsciously, I feel like no pressure from my father, and that's the way I start to engage on the practice, because he never asked me for more, or he never tell me I should do better because I'm not good enough or whatever. So it's always great, but don't forget to do this. It's great, but don't forget to. So he started to support me every way around, emotionally, technically, and never asked me for something. So it was very interesting introduction and connection with Jiu-Jitsu, to the point I become relatively good in competitions and stuff, and I start to charge myself or ask myself to do better, to win. So from maybe 9, 10 years old to 17, 18, I was focused on my competition and my ego and my ways to develop my techniques, because I want to be the one on the podium. I want to be the winner. I want to be. So for ego, I try to become the best I can be, and I had talent. So things kind of went well for me. And then at one point, I become a teacher, and I start to feel like how important for me was to spread my knowledge and to make people feel like they involve in Jiu-Jitsu, but not exactly with the pressure or with the commitment to be what I am, but just to become more comfortable, to sense the distance, the comfort, the escapes, the gravity, the leverage, the techniques. And this knowledge makes people, not only fighters, but average people, become much more confident, become much more inspired to live, and much more peace of mind, because they feel like they have a chance. So that's pretty much was my life in Jiu-Jitsu, was just from developing myself and then share with others, and now become like a master, which try to see what the students need the most in terms of growing as a person, because I feel like Jiu-Jitsu transcends the mat and, you know, embraces life as a much complete way. So you can fight Jiu-Jitsu in any, not when I say Jiu-Jitsu, I say martial arts, because what Jiu-Jitsu brings to you is the sense of being a martial artist, different than being an athlete of soccer or even judo, because you stay in a box with many rules and stuff. So you become a great athlete, but not exactly a martial artist. The martial arts is different from sport because has no rules, has no size of opponent, there's no how many opponents you're going to fight with. So all those unpredictable situations make you have a bigger toolbox, like I call the Warriors Toolbox. And that's a very complex, not only techniques, it's not only agility, it's not only personal ability, it's not only courage, it's not only aggressiveness, it's not only sharpness in your mind, but also patience, sense of weight distribution, sense of emotional control, strategy, invisible tools that can help you immensely, not only in achieve a victory on the mat, but also to have a better life, you know, because in order for you to achieve something, better strategically you are, more in control of your emotions you are, more sharp in your way you process your mind in terms of handle fear and things like that. They're all invisible, but they all help you immensely in how to achieve a conquering something.
It's almost like it gives you a stronger sense of self because you found yourself through the martial arts.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because, I mean, there's so much philosophy that goes behind martial arts, which we'll get into that. And before we got there, I want to talk about some of the fundamental building blocks, because when people look at this from a martial arts perspective, you know, they usually think of it in a martial way of the punches, the kicks, the jiu-jitsu, the chokes, the competition. So to get into that philosophical connection that I feel that you have made, I would like to start with the thought of defense. You know, it's like, oh, you know, there's defense in martial arts, there's offense. And some people are believers that, oh, you need a strong defense. Others are like, no, you just need a good offense. Where do you feel that defense fits into martial arts as a fundamental structure?
I think defense is not the proper word. I think survival is the perfect word. Because martial arts allow you to survive for the next day, for the next battle. You know, and if you win, if you're lucky enough, you can kill your opponent or you can achieve your conquering immediately. But sometimes you have to postpone for the next day. So the element of martial arts will give you the sense of being indestructible is the capacity to survive, be resilient, be knowledgeable, be in control of your emotions, and be able to apply patience or apply strategy or apply concepts which lead you to a better accepting the challenge or dissolve or resolve the matter. So a lot of aspects of in terms of invisible jiu-jitsu, invisible martial arts are as important than the practical ones.
You know, so our mutual friend, Johnny Lee Smith, who's a great friend of mine, and I know that he's been a friend of yours for forever, and he speaks so highly of you, and he actually trains law enforcement officers around the country. And something that he had mentioned that his program kind of does from your influence was this idea of that survival, like what you mentioned. So I feel like kind of your martial aspect is almost built for people that are in careers such as law enforcement or military, of that survival of you have to persevere to get through it. Do you feel like that mental aspect is something that could help that community, if it's something that maybe could be bred more as those guys in their training or inspiring them to do their duties? Because that's a different function versus when I go get in a fight for 5 minutes or 20 minutes with a referee versus when you have to go out and protect citizens, protect yourself, and you never know what the threat is. What is the crossover for you of the martial arts into a law enforcement capacity or a safety capacity for just society in general?
So for me, jiu-jitsu is something very basic and very much supportive to any cause. no matter if you want to be a martial art, a MMA champion, or if you want to just be a safe, a comfortable housewife. Jiu-Jitsu can support you in terms of give you more confidence, give you more capacity to handle stress, handle emotions, and things like that. If we're specifically talking about law enforcement, especially here in the US, they have the power, they have the weapons, they have the team, they have the capacity to bring the army, the Air Force, so any tank, helicopters, so they have the technology and the weaponry to make them strong. But you see a very high rate of suicidal in police officers and the police, because they are under pressure. They cannot pull the gun and say, what are you doing here? They have to wait for the bad guy, pull the gun. They cannot do whatever they feel like. So they under a box, which respect, you know, they have to be in a defense, which keep them highly tense mentally, cardiovascularly, but he cannot do things because he cannot overdo. He cannot be accused of hurting people, or so he's under pressure all the time. That's why I feel like for those, specifically those people, they have to have a better understanding of the invisible aspect of Jiu-Jitsu. Breathing, for example, is a huge element of peace to make your heart and your brain peaceful. If the fighter or the athlete or the police officer don't know how to breathe, they never learn how to breathe, they lose at least 40% of the capacity to overcome the emotional stress. At least, to don't say more. So my recommendations for law enforcement is to have a practice which allow them to understand themselves first, the way they can lower their heartbeats, the way they can have a functional, like a stressful functional, and still breathing appropriately to don't get exhausted, to don't get panicked, because especially through the breathing, you can keep doing what you're doing physically and still giving, by hyperventilation, blood enough to your brain. Because if you don't know how to work this, you start to do something energetic here, and your brain needs oxygen, and you don't know how to hyperventilate, you start to become more like tense and fading away, and you losing perspective of being focused. And sometimes, based on the lack of oxygen, you lose the capabilities to respond mentally, because sometimes the enemy coming from the email. Your stress can come from a phone call. So it's not something physical. You have to be able to breathe, use the diaphragm, be relaxed, be capable to recruit all your elements and be in charge of, because seems strange, but the lungs, they have the capacity to create a very important link between the brain and the heart. Because the brain and the heart, they send emotions and thinking and receiving emotions. The only organs in the body who can send and receive emotions and are the brain and the heart. The others, they just work. They can be affected by your emotions, but they don't send and receive emotions. So through the lungs, you can organize your breathing, and you have a better control of your heartbeats. And also panic attacks, claustrophobic, anxiety, breakdown, nerve breakdown, all those coming from the emotional aspect, which also, if you can breathe, like, for example, empty stomach, no air. One breath. So if I'm able to organize my breathing and putting them in a rhythm, I'm able to flow in my brain, and everything can organize. If you don't control your breathing, everything goes all over. So for law enforcement, I recommend a practice which comes more towards understand your enemy, and your enemy coming from the expectation, coming from the anxiety, coming from this kind of nervous, just to about what happened, put you in. Things can fall in your head if you make a wrong mistake on what you're explaining. So the stress for law enforcement can be coped with this capacity for you to be able to leave the uniform and breathe and make a meditation, a quick fix that I call, and go home ready to give love to your kids, to be sharp in your interaction with the community in a different perspective. So you cannot leave the office thinking everybody's a suspect, everybody. So you keep in the mindset which, you know, you carry on, and you get home, you not even know. I mean, it's completely strange. But if you're not able to shift, you keeping 24 hours a day being a police officer under restrictions, under this, and that's terrible because you cannot disconnect. So that's will take you from a different level of you know, imbalance. So a lot of the balance coming from the knowledge of within, which coming from the sense of balance, the sense of connection, the sense of weight distribution, the sense of breathing, the sense of having a strategy plan, having visualizations about what you have to do in case I have to pursue somebody, in case somebody's shooting me, in case. So you have to visualize things and become more comfortable in that kind of acceptance. You cannot get caught unaware. And visualization, as good as for a fighter, as good as for a police officer, he have to visualize a easy pursuit, a hard pursuit, a pursuit when he gets shot on the ankle and still limping but able to kill the guy. He can picture everything, including the fact without his control, he can die. And death is not something, wow, death is something natural as born. So as a police officer, you have to leave home knowing can be my last day. And if you're comfortable with that, it's less panicking, it's less trouble, because you have to be realistic and honest with the perspectives you have in terms of what could happen every day. And then by that practice, you become more comfortable to be on the front line and happier as you come back home and more free of the tension. So knowing how to control your emotions is a huge part in martial arts.
I feel like it's almost like whenever you show the mechanical aspects of like an arm lock, you know, there's a physiological pattern to how an arm lock works. And I feel like a lot of your principles you're discussing is the same physiological pattern of the breathing and connecting your mind to your body and your emotions. I feel like it's that oneness that you keep discussing of how do you connect the mind and body? Because in jiu-jitsu, you talk about connection all the time, connecting to the earth, connecting to the partner, the opponent. How important do you feel that mind-body connection is?
I think it's crucial because you become one, you know, you're not divided. You're not going that way and creating enemies in your mind thinking is the right way, is the wrong way. So if you decide and you agree mentally, physically, emotionally, you're in the right direction. So you full force, no matter what you're doing, you have no enemies. Because I remember the first fight I did with Zulu. I was 19 years old. And just in the beginning of the fight, I hit him with a very nice knee on the face. At the time, was no mouthpiece, no cups, nothing. And I felt like when I hit, I win the fight. You know, it's like feeling the sense with, I never hit somebody that strong. And when I did, I said, wow, man, that's a score right there. And he just stood up, shook his face, spit a tooth, and come back like nothing happened. And then I was, wow, that's serious business. And with that, the fight goes on and the first round is over. I went to my corner, dead tired. And my father said to me, "Oh, you're doing great. You're going to come back." I said, "Dad, I cannot go back there. I'm dead. I'm tired. I cannot move. I want to quit." He said, "No, you're doing fine. You're doing good." So he started to force me in. And then my brother took me a bucket of ice and water in my face. I breathed. Eventually the bell rings and I'm back there. And after 3 minutes in the second round, I could choke the guy out. And it's exactly like my father said. And, but at that point, my brain give me doubts. At that point, I divide myself between what I should believe and what I felt it. So that was maybe the biggest lesson I have in order to get what I achieved. Because I understood my worst enemy was my own brain. Tell me I was not enough, could not win. And I have to debate with my dad in order to go back to the ring, because if it was my wish, I would never go back there. So after that fight where I lost, where I understood my worst enemy can be in my own brain, I start to find alliance, because after that, I decided to say, I prefer to go and die than quit. So at that point, all my emotions, all my desires, in my visualizations, I said, either I go forward or I have to get killed to go backwards. I'm not intentionally turn around. So, and that was a huge lesson, because combining with breathing exercises, with biogymnastica training, with jiu-jitsu practice, with, surfing waves and finding myself in the nature. So all this you work good when your brain, your lungs, and your heart are aligned. And I felt like that alliance make me feel like seeking for comfortable in hell. Because once you start to become comfortable, no matter the environment you are, if you're fighting somebody, if you're surfing big waves, if you in a very financial situation, if your family get COVID, no matter what it is, more capable you are to be in control, you will make the best decision, you'll be the best, most positive possible, you find the solutions in the easiest way possible. So the alignment between your brain, your emotions, and your spirituality and your physicality, all this has to be the perfect package for anyone, especially for warriors.
And I love that analogy of alignment, because when you go to class and you teach the new student the arm lock, that's what it's all about, is it's alignment of the body and the joints and the details. Because if the alignment's not right, the arm lock won't work. And you kind of alluded to something, especially about the Zulu fight, which, I mean, I've watched that probably 100 times. But you kind of mentioned, it sounds like there was a touch of fear that came in, because another mutual friend we have is, Jack Neville's 25-year Green Beret. And, Johnny kind of introduced him to you, and he got to come out and you took him through some breathing exercises last year. And hearing him talk about fear and what that does to people and how it takes control of their life, I really feel like what you were talking about kind of resonated on, controlling that fear or finding a use for it. So what are your thoughts on fear and how it influences people's lives, and what do they need to handle that and cope with that better?
If you're talking about fear, I will talking about people just have fear because they want to preserve themselves, preserve their entity, and they don't want to make mistakes. They not want to feel like they lose something. So they're afraid because they don't know. They're not sure. So in that case, fear is a friend, because fear puts you in a situation, a realistic situation. Rickson, you want to make you want to sing tomorrow in the Staples Center? I'm going to say, you kidding me? I will piss in my pants. I don't know nothing about singing. I will be shaking if I have to sing for the president, but if you talk, can you teach an arm lock for a president? Yes, I do, because it's comfortable for me. I have something I've done all my life. So I'm not afraid of things I know. I'm afraid of things I don't know. And with the sense of protecting my identity, protecting my ego, protecting my image, protecting my money, I don't want to get risky with things I'm not sure. So the fear is the first thing, the first relationship I have with fear is intelligence, awareness, is something, hey, don't forget, man, there's a dog in there, there's a pit bull in the house, you're not going. So fear is something which helped me to make adjustments. If I have to fight somebody, I will be afraid of this guy because he's tough, he knows how to punch, he knows how to do. So I'm afraid of him. And I will be just all the adjustments required to make a good fight with this guy. So, but when I have to fight, in the time of the fight, in the day of the fight, I wake up in the morning and say, thanks my God to be ready for a fight. I know I'm gonna have something heavy to do. I know I have to respect the guy. But now it's time for me to put the fear on the shelf. The courage transpass fear. So when you have courage, you're able to control fear at the moment you need. But if you don't have the courage, you become a coward. You become setting up with the fear. You're becoming like defeat by fear. Fear take over. And I cannot move. I cannot. So that's terrible. But in one point, if you tell me you're not afraid, I will tell you you're stupid. Because you should be afraid. You should respect the waves. You should be respecting the enemy. You should be respecting the lack of money or the problems with using masks or COVID. So I'm not here saying, oh, I don't care. I'm not afraid of COVID-19. That's terrible. That's a big mistake. If I get it, I will visualize, I will take over easy. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to not take. So I take all the precautions, the strategies, no matter what. Eventually, I can even die the COVID. But it's not a lack of anticipation. I will be able to follow step by step until the last day. So I admire fear in the sense of enlightening people of the possibilities. But I have to be in control of my fear. So once I learn, no matter how much fear I have for something, if I decide with my mindset, take over, fear becomes my best friend because just give me the sights, the ideas of, hey, don't forget, man. Don't make sure you put your skis before you go downhill.
Yeah. You know, you've mentioned kind of facing death about 2 or 3 times. And I feel like that goes back to that ultimate, if there is no other option than victory, you don't split your energy. Because you know how sometimes when people worry about, well, what if it goes bad? You know, like they're putting their energy into one direction, but they still have energy going into what if it goes bad? And I feel like you're kind of alluding to when you have only one direction, all of your energy is going in one, one directive pattern. You don't have room for, that ulterior option, to stress.
Definitely. You don't have to divide your intention forward and backwards. So backwards, you don't even look at more. You leave on the shelf the fear, the life, the help, the family, the feelings, the friends, the money. And now I go with this. If something go wrong, and then we see what happened. If I still alive to make more money, if I will die, so whatever happened, it's not my chore anymore. It's just something I have to rely on something else.
Yeah, I can remember being a little bit younger and I'd made a move, I moved to a new area, going to open a school. And up until that point, I thought that I knew that what 100% effort meant. I really believed I did, but I was very young. And whenever I put myself in this scenario, there was no safety net. There was no other option. And that's when I truly learned that failure is not an option feeling, that I'm not even going to have that option in my brain or in my soul. And it actually gave me momentum because I was able to lean into that direction I was heading even more with a degree of confidence to accomplish. And I would still pivot because things can go wrong. I mean, at any time the plan you're on can go wrong, but that's why you pivot. But like you said, you don't spend time looking backwards or going backwards. And I feel like what you talk about with connection on the jiu-jitsu mats, with your philosophy of connecting the mind and body, and then as you talk about being, one and whole, that's almost what you're alluding to is put all of your energy and efforts into one focused direction to get the results you're after.
100%. You know, I feel like if you plan, because happiness in general, happiness is not a stable something. It's not something stable. Happiness, the happiness you achieve today is not going to make you happy 5 years from now. So you're happy today because your son born, beautiful. But you're going to happen in 2 years when he starts walking or swimming. And then you're going to be happier with the day he goes to school. So happiness is evolving in terms of fighting. You win a tournament today. If it's the last tournament, the happiness is not going to be in terms of tournament. You're not going to be happier for tournaments anymore, because 2 years from now, you win a tournament back there. You have to win another one. You have to. So happiness evolves and moves. You have to conquer something. No matter if you buy a car, no matter if you have a girlfriend, no matter if you have a new job, no matter if you get 5 pounds of muscle, conquering something make you feel happy. If you stagnate, the happiness diluted, dissolves, not stays. Because you make money last year, doesn't do nothing for the COVID and the money today. So in order for you to be happy, you have to be sharp. Because you have to know what you need to be happy, yes. And then you have to use a strategy to achieve that. Because without the strategy, we will be much more, unpredictable. So if you have, no, I have to buy a car, so I need to save the money, I need to do this, so strategically speaking, you have the chance to get a car. Strategically speaking, you have the chance to get a girlfriend, because you're not going to approach her poorly. You have to know what you're going to say, how it works, and goes on and on. So the idea of being sharp in your brain recruits the elements within martial arts: strategy, emotional control, timing, weight distribution. When I say weight distribution, when I say base, for example, base works properly on the mat for you to don't get fall. So get base, you have positioning to get strong base. But to get in an argument with somebody, you also need base. You need to know what you're talking about. Because if I start talking about technology now, I will be dead on the woods, because I don't know nothing about, I just know how to do emails and WhatsApp. So in order for me to get arguments with some TI guy, I have to know what he's talking about. So base give you not only sense of balance, but also sense of argument, sense of empowerment based on what you know. Connection. The connection, I believe, helps me a lot, not only to feel my opponent and take advantage of what he gave it to me, but also when I shake somebody's hand, he can give me the hand like soft hand. I'm going to shake and I'm going to connect with the guy. I'm going to feel something. If he shake my hand too strong, I'm going to feel a different feeling. Say, hey, this guy want to prove me he's stronger than me just by the way he's shaking my hand. If you give me the hand with the right pressure, I'm going to say, hey, this guy's a balanced guy. He's a sharp guy because he don't push too much. So the connection starts from when you get into a room. When you get into this room, you have to connect with the guys around, if bad guys, good guys, if they smoke, if they crazy, if they're drunk, if you like the environment, if you don't like. So all this is connection. You have to allow yourself to connect. So the concepts within martial arts, they allowed you, once you practice them properly, to become more smart, life smart, to become more capable to understand things in between lines, the invisible aspects. And that's give you the chance of being sharper in your conquering mode. I don't care if you're going to be conquering a fighter, another fighter, or if you've been conquering a job or a girl. Basically, you have to use the same emotional control, the same ideas of positiveness and capacity to strategize, either get the arm or get the neck. If he escapes the neck, I go back to the leg. So all this works properly in any aspect of life. Give you chances to really achieve, based on consciousness, based on your own effort, achieve your own happiness. So better martial arts you are, better chances you have to be a great, happy guy.
You know, and you talked about conquering, you know, and I look at almost like conquering and achieving and succeeding kind of being similar, you know, terms for that of, I feel like sometimes that's where, like, when you look at the white belt or certain competitors or people that do jiu-jitsu, they look at the win or lose is how they judge the accomplishment or the conquering or the success, when the real success and the real conquering achievement is like the small goals in front of you. You know, like, did I get this grip? You know, did I get this foot placement? Instead of being so focused on the end of the match of whether I win or lose, being a little bit more focused on those small, like, micro goals almost. I feel like that translates into life as well, to where if your only measure of success is if you win or lose, then I feel like it reduces your ability to pay attention to details that matter. You know, do
Yeah.
you feel like when you're in jiu-jitsu that people get too focused on like the large, big goals and they miss the small nuances?
Yes. As somebody who's working on passing the guard, but he's not working in the elbows position and the weight distribution and the way. So he starts creating too much trouble and not enough solutions, because the solutions start being very step by step. So if you want to lift some kid and his elbows like this, he's not going to have the handle, the power. You're not going to let him lift. You're going to, so keep the elbows very close to your ribs, and then you lift him. So he feels the leverage, no matter what he's going to use in the future, but the leverage of the elbow glue on his ribs, the rib cage, is much more powerful than, so he starts to evolve based on the feelings of, oh, now I can feel safe. Now I can feel base. Now I can feel I can have the leverage to move or to do or to suit. So all those possibilities coming with the understanding, like you said, of details. I always, as a teacher, focus on details. You know, it's not about the whole picture. It's about how you go from here to here, because technique is defined based on how you go from point A to point B as easiest, as faster, as effortless possible. So this is technical. No matter if you're folding pizza boxes, the technician, he makes 100 pizza boxes, and if I go there, I'm going to make 10. Until I get, so he gets the development of the ability to do it. So the technique is based on the practice of details, practice details. Eventually, you're able to use this no matter what. If you're fighting, if you're sleeping, if you're dreaming, you're able to use it. But the idea of being able to recognize the little smooth details which makes the difference is what makes a weak guy. I enjoy so much when I get some fragile student and he perceives, oh man, in that particular position, I'm stronger than you, I can handle. So he starts to become crazy about their possibilities based on the leverage, the angle I put them on. So nothing more empowering for the student when he feels he has a leverage, who can cope, who can counterpart, who can fight with a stronger, heavier opponent. So he feels like safe. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that alignment, that idea of, you know, applying those details and be able to mentally reinforce your strategy. And then you become very strong from within, like Master Helio Gracie.
Yes. You know, when I was younger, a friend of mine, he gave me a set of Japanese dishes for tea. And I remember him telling me the story about how there was actually a art to there was actually an art to making tea, like in Japan. Like, I mean, it was a very specific, like, this is how you set the dish. This is how you handle, you know, the way you pour. Like, there was all these details, and I just thought that was strange and confusing, you know, to me. And then I remember later on, whenever I was, you know, training a lot of martial arts, competing, and my friends that were in the military talked about, like, oh, in military, you have to shine your boots and make sure your buttons are in line. Like, there's all these little detail things. And then as I kind of matured as a martial artist, I almost started looking at all those little focused on detail aspects of those things that I just had memories of. And it really illustrated how important the details were, because if I can't focus on the details in one area of my life, it's going to be difficult for me to focus on the details in other areas. Just like with jiu-jitsu, it's like if I can't pay attention to where my grip is, I'm probably going to struggle with that technique if I have a lack of awareness, because I feel like that's the other part you've talked about, is this awareness principle with the connection.
Yes, that's why Jiu-Jitsu is something which everybody practices, everybody teaches, everybody learns. But the best approach for teaching Jiu-Jitsu is to make the student learn from within. He has to feel the difference. He's not just obeying what you're saying, but he has to, oh man, I can feel now. When you click them and that feeling, he's going to seek for that same leverage in every position. He's going to seek for the same connection. He's going to feel like, fuck, this is so easy because I did why. So let me seeking for the same easy way in different matters. And that's going to translate for life too. The easiest way to buy a car. So you become more sensitive to the concepts within martial arts, the strategy, the connection, the base, the way distribute the timing. Timing is so important when you're thinking about timing. When you learn how to deflect a punch properly, you also learn how to get an airplane in time, you know, because you make your adjustment. So it's very hard for me to get late in something because I'm always focused on, you know, the timing. It's naturally, the strategic aspect of timing is make you feel always ahead, because you put in time as a very important piece of the whole thing. You put in connection, you put in level. So all those concepts, when they are very well used, they all the time at your life. Right now in my life, I have very few, I mean, jiu-jitsu practice is very little, surf practice is very little, you know, but my concepts in martial arts are using daily, from breathing to strategy, to emotional control, to become, you know, positive and so on. So I still using the concepts daily, and I don't have to fight to do that. And I feel very happy with the achievements I do based on that concept.
It's almost like you're discussing receiving signals from the external. Because like when you look at the new person that does jiu-jitsu, their awareness is minimal. They didn't notice you grabbed the gi. They didn't notice you controlled the arm. They didn't notice you moved your foot, because they're so busy expending their energy and they're so focused on what they're trying to do to you. They're not very aware of what you're doing to them. So it's almost like that demonstrates this lack of synergy of I'm sending signals, but not receiving signals, you know, because like sometimes you'll see big, strong guys struggle with that. They're pushing and squeezing so hard, they can't feel or be sensitive to what the opponent is doing. And I feel like you see people that struggle with that even off the mats, where they're not sensitive to what's happening around them, and it makes it difficult for them to navigate those struggles. Do you feel like that kind of correlates, you know, off the mats as well?
Yeah, I think, you know, the modern jiu-jitsu, the people compete and stuff, they pretty much start to practice in jiu-jitsu based on the rule sets of the tournament, which make them feel like, oh, if I pass the guard, I already win in the fight. So I just need to hold on and stall here and this and that. So they practice the strategy of the game, not exactly the fight. When I practice jiu-jitsu, I always practice jiu-jitsu thinking about my opponent can be any, because for me, in my time of competition, was no weight division, no time limit, no rules. So with those three aspects, you don't know your opponent coming to kick you in the face, to headbutt you, to bite you, to choke you, to throw you. So I'm already open-minded for whatever comes. I'm not just so focused on protecting my foot. This guy has lapel guard. I'm going to do. So it's not becoming like a game where positioning matters. I have to protect myself to survive another day. I have to take advantage of any opportunity my opponent give it to me for me to finish. And if this is a lack in between of a couple of hours of patience I have to do, I will keep patience. So all the elements are there, alive to be used. Not exactly, oh, it's a just 5 minutes fight, 2 points. So So it's not exactly something which you can put in a category of a sport. It's more than a sport for me. It's never been a sport because I never get in a fight intending to tap. If I get caught, I will die, I will break. I'm not going to tap. Because for me, it's the way I feed my kids, it's the way my life, so I'm not there to emotionally quit. I'm thinking if the guy gets my arm and break my arm, I will try to keep fighting with one arm, you know, because I'm not going to tap. So that's kind of level of commitment a guy like me have during my lifetime in a profession to become the best what I can do. So I was not coming with excuses. I come in with just solutions. So, but to do that, you have to have an open-minded and you have to use those invisible aspects like they're only one to be used, like patience. If I have a guy with a very 50, 80 pounds heavier than me, I cannot be in control. I have to allow myself to be defensive and smart to counter any mistake he makes. But I have to be be led by him until the point he make a mistake and I capitalize. You know, that's for me is something normal. And could take 5 minutes, could take an hour. So the mindset for me was just surviving and wait for the opportunity to kill. Nothing in between.
Yeah.
No points, no, I passed the guard. Where is the referee to call the fight? I win already. So today the athlete, he's a very tough athlete. I have a lot of respect for the athletes today. They doing very good. But the mindset for them is more like players than actually fighters. When I say fighters, is like the unpredictable aspect, you know, the martial arts aspect. And sometimes they lack of that because they just feel like they're on top of their game to win tournaments. And that's great for them in that aspect, but it's a lack of understanding. If you bring a guy who's win the tournament in 170 pounds, you say, okay, guy, tomorrow you're going to fight a guy with 350 pounds. He will be completely lost because it's not, for me, was just another opponent. I said, okay, let's see how, because I was not intent to be a short fight or not intent to give him a triangle. I will go and play until, if I cannot win him with techniques, I will win him by gas, whatever I have to do, and just allowed myself to feel comfortable in hell.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah, I like that analogy because if you're comfortable in the worst possible circumstance, then you're going to keep your composure. You know, and when you have composure, then you're competent. And whenever you're competent, that's where you can execute. You know, I heard, you know, Ensign Inoue, we were talking about this, and he talked about how he said, he's like, I don't know if I would do well in fighting today, because he said about the time they stop the fights nowadays is about the time that I got started in the old days. Because for him, it was about the ultimate test of self. He's like, I wanted the biggest, toughest guy, and I wanted to go until there was an absolute winner. He's like, I didn't want a decision. I didn't want it to go to the, you know, the judges. He's like, I was in there to die or win. And I feel like that, you know, you speaking that, and with him kind of, you know, coming out of that Gracie lineage back, you know, in Hawaii when he discovered you guys, and just becoming a fighter. And of course, the Japanese culture influenced him. And we talked a lot about your fights in Japan and how that influence of just that warrior spirit, you know, that was kind of what encompassed the fighting 20 and 30 years ago. It was really the test of the warrior to see how far can I take myself or my body or my willpower. And like you said, now it's a little bit more of an athletic event, which requires willpower and athleticism. I mean, these guys are, like you said, they are athletes. They train hard. I mean, they are high speed. It's a tough job. But I feel like now it's a little bit more about testing the athleticism and the techniques and the abilities at the high levels, where it seems like in the old days, the fight was a little bit more about your personal journey of, can I survive this? Can I persevere? Can I find a way to victory without any reasonable circumstances? You know, no rules, no weight class, I'm going to get poked in the eye, I'm probably going to get bit. It almost like seemed like it was more of a test of self.
Yes. In the past, I mean, I always compete all my life, and I compete. Every time I fight, I submit my opponent. I never win by points. But in the past, Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, it's still 10 minutes. But was very hard for me. I mean, normally 5 minutes, I finish the fight. Because people fight like before they fight to win and to fight their best. Right now, they fight to stall. They hold positions, hold lapels, very strong guys, very well-trained guys, but they don't have the same commitment with the victory or defeat. They want to just play a safe game because sometimes they fight 8, 10 times the same day. So they cannot be just let it go and let it unleash the beast. He have to be very safe and know how to control in situations and stalling and making one advantage and wait to win by advantage sometimes. So it's very strategical, it's very technical in terms of points and elements like that, but lacks the element of martial arts where you fight to make the guy quit. Yeah. You know, and either you quit or you make somebody quit, but it's not exactly like, you know, sometimes you see in those events a big waste of time, and the guy who won, he deserved to win by this. I mean, you don't know who won because they both fight so good. It's just one advantage. So it becomes a little unrealistic, you know, because it's supposed to be another round. Let's try again. Let's keep going until somebody tap. Or, you know, it's a draw. Both lost because nobody win. Just go out. You just win by submission. So you have to force the guy to put him in a position. He have to know if he's the best or if he's the worst out there. A lot of people, they go in, they go out, they said, I should win. They feel like they lost the fight, but they don't lost the fight. Somehow they find, oh, the guy just hold and stall my leg, but I could win. So it becomes a very unclear situations, which I completely feel like takes away the martial arts element and put a very detailed interpretation of the judge elements in, which makes something more like, I don't have the same appealing to see competitions those days. They're very boring because sometimes the best guys, they do the last on the fight. They just stalling and holding and, you know, playing very safe, because for them the important is the medal. It's not exactly the actual kick ass here.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that many guys at that level, because you know, the level of performance nowadays is so high. I mean, all of these guys are training full time. They have nutritionists and strength coaches, and, you know, they're doing jiu-jitsu, and they're very strategy driven. I mean, they are just, I mean, the game is operating at a different level. And like you said, you know, they have to stay focused on getting the victories, because that's how they get to the podium. And kind of like you mentioned to, you know, earlier, was that's how they feed families. You know, that's how I feed my family, by getting victories and winning. And a lot of it is, I think, sometimes that entertainment value versus, you know, the individual warriors that want to go out and just, you know, fight to the win, you know, fight till the end. Because I bet, you know, talking to some of these guys, I think very much that a lot of these guys would be like, yeah, I want to fight to the ultimate end, but you got promoters and promotions and, you know, spectators and people that want the entertainment value, and they don't want to sit around and watch, you know, a 90-minute fight, or, you know, or two guys battle out for over an hour, and, you know, because that's not cool. It's not fun. It's not exciting. And I feel like the entertainment part has driven a lot of the rule sets, because, you know, a lot of these competitors nowadays, like, they are warriors at heart, but this environment in which they have to compete, and especially have to focus on their longevity to protect their body, because this is how they're paying their bills and like how they're supporting their families, and they kind of have to play within the rule sets, you know?
Yes.
And I know that's got to be a struggle, but at the same time, there's still that, you know, desire of, you know, how far can I go? And so
Yeah.
if you had to look back in the competition aspect, we'll start on that side of it. What was one of the most memorable moments where you truly know that you went so far beyond your capacity, that just stretched you beyond who you were as a fighter? Was there a competitive moment that you remember that was like, oh my gosh, this took me way further than I ever believed I could go?
I think the only moment I really felt like I lost my feet was in a fight with Zulu, because I was just internally a mess. I was emotionally feel like I was having no more chance. That's the only time I felt like. The other fights I have, either jiu-jitsu tournaments, no matter if it was in my weight division or open class, or either other Vale Tudo fights and stuff, I never felt the same because, you know, I have such a high level of pressure because people think when you're the best, you should be just waiting for the challenges. And that's a kind of sign you're ready to fall. For me, I was the best, but I was not finding myself as the best. I was always seeking for something to give me more trouble than I have. So if I could one day get at the academy and get my top 20 students and tell them, okay, I'm gonna finish everybody with less than a minute after mount. So I could do this maybe with 15 guys. But 5 guys I could not do because they will know well, they're good training partners and stuff. So even if I win them with 2 minutes, I was disappointed. I would go home, said, wow, I should. So I always keep my losing mentality. I always keep very close-minded and bringing challenge, bringing absurd things, bringing craziness to my game to cope with that kind of feeling of going home. Gosh, damn it, how I can. But it's just 1 minute and you start, no, but doesn't care. So I was creating excuses. I'm not creating excuses, I'm just creating reasons for me to be pissed, to go home and said, I have to improve myself. I have to get better. I'm never going to let the guy escape again. And that's pretty much was, you know, is a driving for me to keep going up in my game. And,
it's, well, you said benchmarks. I use that example all the time with students and fighters. I always, because I'll get these fighters that come in or jiu-jitsu athletes and they're like, I'm the best in the gym. I can beat everybody. And I always ask them, I'm like, how did Rickson Gracie get better when he was the best? You know, and of course they look at me and because they'd never thought of it. I was like, he set up unreasonable expectations to where he would start in a bad position. There was a time limit on how long he had to finish. He had to finish with a certain arm bar on a certain side of the body. When you set the game up to make it unreasonable to accomplish certain goals, that's how you continue to rise to the top, even though you can technically tap everybody in the gym. And I feel like a lot of people don't keep challenging themselves to that level because then the only person that truly knows they failed is themselves. Because they can always fix it. You know, I finished him in 1.5 minutes. Well, it's supposed to be a minute. It was close enough, you know.
And a lot of people make a mistake because sometimes they training very hard and what they are good already. So they go and they make the same training every day and they kick everybody's ass. But this guy is supposed to start with somebody's inside the triangle choke with somebody, you know, and see how he goes from that point. And if he escapes easy, let's do this when he's tired to see if he. So I was creating all the kind of problems for myself. Regardless my level of my opponent, I put them always with a chance to achieve something and start to giving them the edge of the position and see how far behind I can start the position to still able to escape or still able to. So I was master on this. I was master in putting myself in deeper holes. To myself be able to at least vision the fight that angle, because some people they training what they do best, and when they get on the fight and finding sometimes an awkward position, they're going to start to discover what the hell I'm doing here. I never practiced this before. I never, you know, nobody mounted me on the school. What are you going to? So and then you find yourself mounted by a bad guy in the middle of an event with no experience how to handle or of no calmness and capabilities to handle from that angle. So, and then you're in the worst hole that is, you know, because you lost under that circumstance. For me, I was never get caught surprised by my enemy. I find myself get surprised by my own creation. I put myself in worse positions and then start to develop the sense of being hell. And, you know, God permits, I'm going to escape. If it doesn't permit, let me find a solution. And so it's always make me feel comfortable in that stage.
You know, Johnny told me a story that you apparently went and trained with the Brazilian Olympic judo team one time.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that a little bit of how you, because I mean, I feel like that was a demonstration of exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, I was called for the Brazilian judo team, Brazilian team. They're very tough in standing up, and they're not exactly good in ground techniques, because in Brazil, if it's a judo tournament and jiu-jitsu guys go in this tournament, they will try to apply ground techniques. And the judo experts, the referees, they know you coming from a different, they know you coming from jiu-jitsu. So at any point, somebody do a jiu-jitsu move in a judo tournament, they say, stop, start again. So they don't let the ground technique works as they work in the East Europe or in other places, because there they don't care. In Brazil, they feel like, oh, this is a jiu-jitsu guy, this is an enemy coming on our tournament. So they become more like trying to separate, try to don't let jiu-jitsu get involved. And that's make the Brazilian judo a little more weak than supposed to be. And then one point they call me to support the judo team and give them more techniques. But I was not there as a teacher. I was there as a training partner. So the first day I even asked for the guy said, you want me to put a white belt, please? Or how belt I want to put here? Because I'm not a black belt in judo. No, use your own belt. I said, okay. And then at the time of the handori, which is the practice, we practice for an hour standing up and then an hour on the knees, just the floor, the newaza. So they stand up for the first week, because I trained there for a couple of months. I was doing nothing, just getting thrown. I was not even trying to defend. I just getting pounding from, you know, everybody on the academy throw me down, and I was not even trying to be forcing my way, not going. So I destroy my ego, just falling, everybody throw me around. And then when I get on the ground, I submit everybody, you know, and eventually I start to getting more comfortable based on techniques, based on angles and details and grips, to become more sensitive of the approach, of the grip of my opponents, and become a little more smart to not getting thrown by easy. Only at the end, like 3 weeks after, only the good guys could still throw me. Only the guys who have Olympic chances and tough guys like national champions and stuff. And I'm very happy with the development of my defensive aspect in judo. And they also love the techniques we share in the ground and stuff. Yeah. But it was a couple of months training with them. And then I have to disconnect because I have other things to do. But it was a great experience.
But I mean, I feel like that demonstrates what you're talking about. Of you put yourself in an unreasonable circumstance once again. You know, I'm going to go stand up with a bunch of judo professionals that's what they do. And you were there to just absorb information. I had a coach one time that told me, I had a guy that kept armbarring me in the gym, and I was like a blue belt. I said, how do I beat him? And he said, go let him get you in that armbar 25 times, and then he will never armbar you again. And I thought that was the worst advice at the time, because I was like, I wanted the secret technique. I don't want to go have to do that. But I feel like he was so accurate, because until you can feel and sense and connect to what they're doing, you can't stop what they're doing.
Game plan, the adjustments, what he wants, what he needs exactly to get tight enough. And sometimes a little angle on your elbow can destroy all his planning. So was a good advice.
So now I'm going to go a little bit outside of the mats so what philosophies of life do you feel like jiu-jitsu really helped you understand and comprehend that has really affected your life outside of the gym and outside of the fight career? You know, where do you feel like some of those ideologies have taken you to make you a more successful, you know, human being, not even successful financially, but just a more well-balanced and finding that oneness that you've discussed?
So jiu-jitsu helped me to understand life in a very deeper way, because it's a representation of life, but on the mat. You know, you can express your emotions, you can express your intelligence, you can express your personality, your character, you cannot hide anything, because once you're there, you have your gi, you have no gold watches, no security, no guns, and you have to expose yourself in a very raw way. Is what you got, you know. And if you're training with somebody and you kick his ass because you're stronger and you're tougher, and then you go training with a tougher guy and you say you're coming with excuses and no, I don't. So you show your personality. So Jiu-Jitsu is a live demonstration of what you're about. I feel like Jiu-Jitsu give you a perspective of life, but everything is inside the mat. Because give you pressure, give you discomfortable, give you ability to seeking for options. So it's a very complete element for you to start to understand better yourself against unpredictable situations, against some you know, is playing a mental chess. So with this being said, the evolutionary process in Jiu-Jitsu make you feel like every time more capable to see the underlines, you know, to anticipate a move, to become better connected with the elements, no matter if it's physical, spiritual, or mental. So it's a great element of beneficial element, positive element in Jiu-Jitsu to give you that kind of sense of and the ability to transfer all this knowledge for life.
If you were going to give somebody the definition of success, how would you describe that?
I think success is based on your self perspective of what you need in life. What's your ambition, and what do you want? What do you know, what do you like? First thing to know if somebody is successful is to know what he likes to do and how much time of his life he put on this. Because lifestyle, a successful lifestyle, is the quality of your sleep, the quality of your food intaking, the quality of your relationships, and the quality of things you have to do. I mean, the time you have to do for things you like. So with those four things in perspective, success is when you're able to express yourself your way and be able to be recognized by that and be able to serve the people, because a lot of success is into the service. You know, you're successful because people thank you in a way, express their kind of gratitude based on what you do. And it's a kind of reflect the way you're being successful because people love what I'm doing. And I love what I'm doing. So everything becomes like perfect all the way. From me to you, from you to me. We just kind of serve each other. We feed each other with that fulfilling expectations and so on. So that's pretty much success for me.
When you look at how much people struggle nowadays with depression, you know, and anxiety, do you feel like that is more physiological, of like they need to be doing workouts, doing jiu-jitsu and breathing well? Do you feel it's more emotional skills and coping mechanisms, or do you feel that it's kind of a blend of both?
No, I feel like it's not about the exercising. The exercise is good for endorphin, you know, but I feel like emotionally you have to be working strategically correctly for that. And spiritually, I feel like the value of the spiritual value in somebody's life is so important as the physical, as the mental. The spiritual relieve you from pressure, because take you from the responsibility to be alive, take you from the responsibility to make the move, take you from the responsibility to fix something. The spirituality gives you the sense of open and connect yourself with God, which is the creator, uncreated. So you don't have to explain God. You have to feel God in your life. You have to feel like whatever is not in your control, put in God's hands, because he will take care of it. And that kind of sense of surrendering, acceptance is a spiritual thing, and has to be aligned with your life, because whatever you have no solution for, it's already resolved itself, because if you cannot do nothing about it, it's better find a way to live with. So that's a spiritual, it's not intelligent or emotional.
So when you look at spiritual surrender, how do you feel that people find that or accomplish that in their lives to where they stop trying to assert so much control over everything?
Yes, it's important to be humble enough to know we're not in control. With technology, robotics, internet, you're planning a trip for a year from now with money, so you know how much money you're going to make, where you're going to go, who you're going to speak with, the phone calls, the internet, the meetings, whatever. So you plan your whole year thinking it's up to you. But something can change today and make your whole year goes down. So it's not about mentally, strategically be, anticipating and coordinating everything. It's about making a plan, but leave it loose, because anything can change. We have control about now. Tomorrow is another day, maybe never happened for me or for you. So that kind of sense of being very focused, but at the same time being relaxed with the future is the perfect combination, because you know what you want, but you're not in control. You're not sure if you're going to get it. So it's better be peaceful with that mindset.
So, it's always said that you're the greatest fighter of all time, the greatest jiu-jitsu player of all time. If you could pick what people remembered you for, or what that legacy could stand for, what would you want that to be in the world for the next 100 years?
Oh man, I never thought about that. I don't think, I want to do my job every day. I want to be very positive to people. I want to really make a difference in people I connect with. I'm proud to be able to know something can help you as a science to help you in life. So I'm very, happy where I am. And if people want to think about it or keep in the memory, that's not about me. And I have done a lot of things. Maybe people remind me for something, but I'm not exactly, I'm humble enough to just give to a superior decision, give you to another plan, another dimension. So everything I do, I'm not seeking for reward or recognition. I'm doing because it's my mission. I feel pleasure to give. So whatever they talk about me in the future, I have to accept, but I'm not sure.
Well, you've definitely influenced people all over the world. Because like myself, I can still remember that day on the couch watching that documentary, and it changed my life perspective in that moment. And I know you've heard this hundreds of times, but you have created a platform through your performances and accomplishments that have inspired so many people, that starts out as, I want to be a fighter. I want to be like him. I want to be tougher. I want to go be an athlete. I want to go get, win gold medals, or I want to be a champion. But the end of the journey usually is where it pivots, where they take your demand for excellence and it influences their own life to start achieving something bigger and more. And it definitely has done that for a lot of people across the world. And you're always very humble with it, as far as, you just go out and do a good job and just try to help people. But you've definitely shifted the world. It's not like a country or a small area. The world of martial arts has changed from a lot of your influences and accomplishments, though it may not have been your intention, but you have definitely, written a lot of history with your actions. And that's where I was just kind of curious if you could steer, like someone like myself, of what do you really want me to take from, your life experiences and your influence that I could pass on to my children or my grandchildren?
I think in terms of my knowledge, what I learned and what I have to pass, I think the most valuable thing today I have is to display and inform people how important is the invisible aspect of Jiu-Jitsu. Is the fight. You fight with your brain, with your spirit, but not with your physicality, because Jiu-Jitsu is being created in the world by the Buddhist monks 5,000 years ago to resolve their problems. So you cannot expect monks, Indian Buddhist monks, become fighters and kill the barbarians with fights and weapons and fights, punches and chokes. Jiu-Jitsu for them was just be camouflage or breathing in the straw under the water, waiting for the arm pass through, and then they survive another day. Or camouflage, or agility to escape from the attacks, and things like that. Because the Jiu-Jitsu they used was to survive. So today, you're talking about Jiu-Jitsu as a martial arts to protect you against the enemy. What's the most important enemy we have today? Anxiety, depression, stress, COVID. Those things are emotional or spiritual. So the side of the invisible, I've been preaching the invisible Jiu-Jitsu for a while. And now becomes very appropriate to start to develop this kind of Jiu-Jitsu, which doesn't translate in fight itself, but translates in more self-recognition. It's the part of Jiu-Jitsu where you start to understand how a little shift of your angle can change the whole performance of your opponent. How a little timing or deflection or connection can really be positive in your engagement. And by knowing those details, you're able to also enforce your mind about strategies and controls and breathing and things like that, which are gonna facilitate your life in terms of facing the reality. And that is what I feel like, if I have to be reminding for something, I think that's a good angle, because I've been fighting, competing all my life, but now I feel like it's not what people need is to fight and compete. People need to understand better about themselves and handle emotional situations as a fighters, as a champions, you know, and be able to use the invisible aspect of Jiu-Jitsu and for self-growth, and be able to be a better father, a better employer, a better employee, and a better police officer, a better nurse, because all those informations give you the sense of balance requires to be, again, seeking for happiness.
Well, and talking about that, if you were going to give two pieces of advice, you know, something that you left for your kids, if you could leave them nothing else, what two pieces of advice would you leave them for life?
Depends of the age. If they're too young, I have to advise their mother to soft with them, to making always conquering what they have to achieve, you know, allow them feel they get the bike because they clean the yard for a week. They get the skateboard because they obey, they don't beat their sister or so. So it's relating gifts with something they, you know, they deserve it. So they don't feel like they being spoiled. They feel like I achieved this because this is mine because I deserve it. So that's the advice for the mother. Yeah. For them, I just gonna advise them if they're kind of above 15 years old, where I feel like I have to say, you have to stick with something you like to do. And if you like to do this, don't quit. Just keep doing and you are gonna achieve success. If you feel like you have a doubt about it, create a new perspective to see what you like to do. And you don't have to stick with the same thing for life. You like to surf, eventually you like to snowboard, so you can shift. But once you get the snowboard now, you have to be the best you can be and never give up and be able to follow your dream through this new pattern. So the idea of engagement, responsibility, never quit, be able to strategize your ways to get up. That's the advice I give for a kid which are already able to understand that.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate the time today. You know, as I said before, you've been an influence on me and so many people across the world, and you continue to grow that influence. And I really value all the insight, and I feel that people are going to really understand a bigger concept of your jiu-jitsu within the scope of philosophy and life and the world itself. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Carla. My pleasure to talk to you, man. And we can do this again in the future. If you have any other questions or any other information, it will be my pleasure to talk to you, my brother. And
yes, sir.
Let's keep going in our martial arts life and achieving success. All the best for you.
Thank you.